Welcome to Dare to Be Seen, brought to you by Alyssa Vulpes Productions and EDN Publishing. Join our host, Alyssa DiNapoli, aka Alyssa Vulpes, author, artist coach, hypnotherapist, singer-songwriter, and drummer, as she engages in down-to-earth, insightful, and inspiring conversations with female indie singer-songwriters around a virtual campfire. We shall discuss the lessons, songs, and personal stories of women who dare to be seen, scratching beneath the surface to give you an insider look into what makes their chosen career sometimes challenging and yet always inescapably compelling. So let's get the show started.
Welcome to another episode of Dare to Be Seen. I am your host, Elisa Di Napoli, aka Elisa Vulpes, and today's episode features harpist, composer, and singer Esther Swift. Esther is internationally recognized for her contribution to the pedal harp and her distinct compositions and songwriting styles. She is a leader in creative collaboration in Scotland, having worked with the Anne Thanks, Aidan O'Rourke, Chris Wood, and Siobhan Wilson, among others. She plays in acclaimed duo 12th Day and writes and performs with respected group Clouds Harp Quartet, as well as regularly performing her solo material. She's been commissioned to write music for Chamber Music Scotland, Manchester Jazz Festival, Edinburgh International Book Festival, Ayrshire Opera, and the Scottish Forestry Commission, among others. Now, before we meet our guest today, I would like to invite you to go to tinyurl.com/daretobeseenpod, where you will be able to download for free my best-selling book, Dare to Be Seen, From Stage Fright to Stage Presence, where you will discover how to turn your stage nerves into authentic confidence so you can perform at your best even if you are an introvert or you've been out of the game for a while. And now, here's our guest for today.
Only our bodies brushstroke pig.
Having to look at yourself and engage with something on a deep level can be quite a scary thing and confronting in a lot of ways.
Suspension of disbelief.
You have to be critical of yourself, but in a productive way. Capacity to allow yourself to be open to new experiences all the time, almost daily.
Esther today in the studio, Esther Swift. I'm really excited to have you, Esther, because you're such a seasoned musician. You've done so many things. I don't even know where to start. So, how have you been?
I'm so happy to be here.
So, how have you been in this very, very difficult period? I know that you mentioned just before we started this interview that you have a podcast about the difficulties that musicians have been going through, specifically since the beginning of this pandemic. So how have you been navigating these times?
Hi, yeah. Thanks first of all so much for having me, Lisa. It's great to be here with you today on a very rainy Edinburgh day. Yeah, it's been up and down. I mean, I think like all of my friends, I've had really lovely things come out of this experience and really hard things too. I mean, my summer was due to be really busy, probably my busiest summer yet in terms of festival gigs, and a mixture of stuff with my duo, which is 12th Day Duo, actually we play with drums and bass sometimes as well as just harp and fiddle.
Yeah.
And also with my quartet, Clouds Harp Quartet, we were going to have like a run of shows, and as Esther Swift, the solo, I was going to be playing a lot as well. So it's been very different to like what I was really excited to be kind of a really exciting, varied summer. It's been a very still, quiet, reflective summer and spring instead. And that has been good in terms of I've had a couple of commissions that I've had like slightly rolling deadlines during this time. So I've had the space to really consider those and write, and it's been quite cathartic writing music in this period and sort of expressing myself in that way whilst just sitting in my house slowly going a bit mad. But like the music that I've been making has been quite often about small observations, like tiny things like the growing of seedlings, or just like reflection, sort of small observations on walks that I've had. So it's been nice to zoom in on like microscopic observations during this time. But I've certainly had productive days and I've had unproductive days. So yeah, very up and down right now.
Right. And then has that changed from how it would be before? You know, I mean, I know that a lot of us have some routines that we can go through that help with the going into the right brain, if you like, you know, going into a creative space, and others just leave it up to chance. You know, for you, do you have a routine or something that you do that puts you in that right frame of mind?
Well, you know, it's been good for me to think about my routine because I haven't ever really thought about my process too deeply, actually. Because I guess I've been really lucky and I've just traveled a lot, so I've had the chance um to get inspired by my environment a lot and the people that I've played music with, and I've played music with so many different people around the world, which all feeds into my own like creativity and my output, and yeah, my environment as well feeds into that. And so I guess my routine has been something, yeah, that I've really tried to implement in this kind of still last few months. And I find like it's maybe a bit of a cliche to say, but just getting out of your own head, walking outside in nature, and just having like less time sitting with your thoughts sort of helps move the energy through my body, and I find it, yeah, a useful way to get the creative juices flowing. I also really like just doing something that's like unrelated to my practice as musician. So like writing, I love writing, and just like exploring words in general. Like I love writing just whatever comes out in my head, just like a series of babbling words, and that quite often sort of formalizes an idea for a song or a piece of music. Or like painting is something else that I love. And yeah, I love being active as well, and climbing hills. And also, you know what? One of my main sources of inspiration is talking to people, talking to inspiring musicians and my community. And so I think I really missed that during lockdown. So yeah, just it's good to be aware. It's certainly made me more aware of my my schedule and what I need in my life to feel creative and inspired.
Right. And, I know that in your podcast you have these mini interviews with other musicians, and your podcast, for anyone that doesn't know, it's called Figuring Out How to Be at Home for musicians. So have you found that there are commonalities? Have you found that people have had similar experiences, or and how have they dealt with the issues that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, you know what? That's been such a beautiful thing for me to link up with other musicians in these last few months who are going through this same thing. I mean, there's a commonality, like a global commonality going on right now, and we're all in it together. And so there's a shared experience, which has been really comforting. And yeah, there's been a lot of similarities that we've discovered through the sharing of ideas and the sharing of each other's processes. And I think most musicians I know, particularly those who tour regularly, gather their inspiration from their experiences,
Right.
from outside of their home, from other people, and jamming with different musicians, and also audience. That's been quite a common source of inspiration. Just people are so generous to support musicians, and they give you their time and energy and money, and it's just amazing. It's such a privilege to be able to do that and to sort of survive doing that. And yeah, I think I didn't really realize before how much I gain from that that generosity that my audience, and I suppose my our fan base, gives me. So yeah, I can't wait to go back to that. And that is certainly like the overriding message through all the people we've interviewed for the podcast, is that we just can't wait to get back to work and be with our fans and be in the same room as people, be able to share air and like feel each other's body language. It's so much more instinctual than just like Zoom concerts.
Oh, absolutely.
And Zoom festivals, which I've done quite a few of as well.
How's that been, doing Zoom festivals?
It's been really great that they've been something, that have been opened up because of this time. And I think it's an exciting medium, and it's one that is still very new to us, and we're all still learning about how the pros and cons of how it works. I mean, it's quite one-dimensional in one respect, but it's also opens up the possibility for global collaboration, which is really exciting. It also opens up like more kind of electronic potential for the music, but it also limits the sound quality a lot.
Yeah.
It's obviously you need to have really, really good internet, really good sound equipment in order for it to kind of function well.
Yeah.
You need to have a really good supportive like technical team, I think, in order for things to work smoothly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there have been good and bad experiences coming out of that, but I'm just really grateful that I've been involved in that discussion and that learning process. It's been a challenge at times, as it has for all of us, but it's a process. We're all learning together to combat this screens, these screens between us.
Absolutely. And when you first started writing music, what do you feel happened for you that made you love music? How did your love for music actually surface in your life in the first instance?
It was always very instinctual for me. I kind of sang. Well, my parents are just incredible people. They're really open-minded, and they always just encouraged music making and like artistic expression in the house. When I was young, and I've sung from when I was like, apparently I sang before I could speak, and like used to like make up songs, and sing them to my parents and my brothers. I'm not sure if they were willing to receive them, but I sang them anyway. and and so yeah, it was very instinctual. It was like a really open environment from a very young age, and um, I joined a choir, and when I was really wee, I think I was like 6 or 7, and then I played the violin and the piano from about the same age, and I was really lucky because um, I was like in these two worlds. One world, I'm from Peebles, which is in the Scottish borders, and so this first world was traditional music, particularly border ballads, folk music, tunes, and I had a duo with my neighbour who was a fiddle player as well, called Shut Up Horse. So we like jammed together a lot in like folk music
Yeah.
scenes in Peebles, which are thriving out there, and then Pennykick and the Borders have loads of cool music activities going on, which I was a part of. And then also, when I was 9, I went to St Mary's Music School in Edinburgh. So that was like, and I was a chorister at the cathedral, St Mary's Cathedral, from the age of 9. And that was when I started playing the harp. And that was like just such an incredible, like eye-opening introduction to the world of like in inverted commas classical music, because I had a daily opportunity to sing in this huge cathedral, and sing in a choir, and learn how to read music in a choir, and learn how to be in a choir, and like the social music making and the singing together thing has just been completely like the foundations for my musical life, actually. And it was such a like good regimented experience of being a musician, because we had to get up really early every morning and sing for an hour before school, learn the music for the service in the evening, and so there was that, like, discipline was a big part of my life from the age of 9. So that's, that was, I guess, all as well as introducing me to loads of just absolutely amazing music by like sacred musicians, choral musicians. I mean, I'm not religious myself, but this music is just unbelievably beautiful, and it's been made for this space, this like chasmos, old ancient space, and it was just so nice to feel like I was a part of that. So as well as being immersed in this music, it was also kind of the start of my journey to discipline and to practice, and my relationship with practice in general, and how important that is. And it's been a really kind of like ever evolving relationship, my relationship with my practice, and like my relationship with my instrument, and yeah, just like keeping on top of that. It's I started early, and it's still a challenge to practice, and to return to my instrument, to return to the same thing all the time, even when it's things are difficult. There's a joy to it, but there's also a duty to it. So yeah, the dance of discipline and practice has been one that I loved, and yeah,
because
it's served me well.
Being a musician is not just about the moment that you feel inspired. It's also just it's craft as well, and
exactly, yeah, that's really true. I think, the craft side of music is just the doing it. You just do it. You just it's about just doing it every day and implementing it into your life and returning to it even when you don't want to. I don't think I think there's a lot to be gained from that discipline, and also it just opens up the potential for loads of really interesting creative output, because if you're going to your instrument like in all aspects of your life when you're feeling no matter how you're feeling at any point in your life, then I feel like it's a genuine expression then of what you're going through, and it becomes, yeah, just more flowing and easier in a way, and more instinctual.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is that you're putting your feelings and what your experiences through the art, and it's almost like excavating your soul, and what's going to emerge from there, and that's your inspiration. And I'm wondering, have you ever been creatively blocked, or is that not an issue for you at all?
Creatively blocked, yeah, certainly. I mean, I'd say the only times I've felt like unable to make music is when I'm stagnant. So, or when I'm really busy. It sort of goes to either extremes.
Right.
So, for example, there was a time in lockdown where I couldn't write music, but I could practice. I could still practice things that I know, if that makes sense, and still read music, obviously, and play music. But I couldn't create music. I just didn't find the inspiration was coming to me. But then also in the past, I felt really saturated with like session gigs and playing other people's music, and like the necessity for survival as a musician, which is a massive one. We have to do loads of like corporate work and take on work for the money because that's obviously a side of the job that's necessary in order to do the thing that you maybe like particularly want to do, which is the creative side of it.
Yeah. But how did you come out of the block then? Was there something that you did in particular that helped you?
Well, the two things, the busyness thing has been something I've considered a lot over the last 2 years in particular. Sort of once I turned 30, I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I am prioritizing my creativity, in a really mindful way, so that I feel fulfilled enough with my creativity, and I'm also making enough money.
Yeah.
And I'm also sustaining myself in that way, because I think like that's a really satisfying thing as well, to be able to sustain yourself as a musician. And it's very rewarding just to be able to play music full time. And so I looked at my life, and I just looked at where I was putting my energies, and what I was getting out of those experiences, and I tried to just schedule my time much more clearly, and prioritize my creativity, and I also I mean, I don't know if this obviously isn't like a business podcast, but I also upped my fees for like wedding gigs and things, which actually really helped me for how I sort of valued myself, like because I just like recognized the value of my time, and like if I got the wedding, like perhaps I kind of wanted to cut back on playing wedding gigs and make sure that the wedding gigs that I did do, I felt really good about, and I'd spent a lot of time thinking about the music for the wedding, and thinking about just making sure everything was taken care of really thoroughly and properly, and I was mindfully doing it instead of just focusing on like the next one and the next one. If you know what I mean. I also spent quite a lot of time looking for opportunities for composing opportunities, and so I had quite a few exciting opportunities that came out of that, including writing a big band piece which is called Light Gatherer, for 4 harps, a string trio, drum kit, piano, and horns, 2 horns. And that was like probably a real turning point when I look back for me, because I realized that was one of my real passions, just to get an opportunity like that and get paid to really, really spend time like crafting this like significant piece of work. So that was like an hour-long piece that I did for Manchester Jazz Festival, and it set 7 Carol Ann Duffy poems to music, and Carol Ann Duffy is one of my favourite poets, And so it was a project that had sort of been bubbling in the back of my mind for a number of years. So to realise that dream felt really amazing, and set the bar, I think, for what's happened since then and what I want out of my life since then. So yeah, I've had a few other exciting commissions since then, and I'm looking for more.
Right.
And just like trying to make sure that I have time to look for those commissions and to invest in my composition.
Right. So it sounds like it's about also striking a balance between commissions and you writing your own songs. Is that something that comes easy to you? What are any tips that you'd like to give us, our listeners?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm perhaps a little bit different from some other musicians because I really thrive on variety. I don't really want to pin myself to one thing too much. So I've got loads of different projects going on all the time, and that's sort of a part of my identity as an artist, is that I like to move and keep my brain really active in that sense. But with that comes a lot of organization.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking about the future and thinking about what I want to be doing next year and in 5 years, and reorganizing that in my head as well, like depending on what happens in my life. Like obviously this last few months there's been a massive reorganization for us all, but I've worked really hard on that and spent a lot of time just considering what I want my future to look like. I spend a lot of time like just doing administrative jobs for my other bands as well. Spent a lot of time having meetings, talking to people about what I want to do, because I find if you have meetings with I don't know, agents or mentors or people who work in the industry in some capacity, and just your community, I guess, people you know that you get inspired by, who are interested in what you do. I find it really useful having meetings and articulating your art and your journey, and it's a really useful way to like formalize your ideas, because you have to articulate yourself to someone else.
Right.
So the art of articulating yourself to someone else is a really productive thing in itself.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, I don't know if any of your listeners are solo artists. Probably quite a few of us are, and I think that is a big challenge because it's quite isolated anyway.
Yeah.
It can be a very isolated experience working for yourself, feeling like you're alone, forgetting about all of your support network, and I find it really useful actually working with my friends, my fellow solo artist friends. Just doing administrative tasks together. That's a really nice way to motivate each other. But yeah, it's nice to just remind yourself of your community when you're in that like isolated world, and just make sure that you socialize and have meetings, even if you don't feel like it, and if you think that you would benefit from just head down being in the house all day. I think for me, I just know that if I have too much time on my own, it's sort of becomes the opposite of productive.
Yeah.
It becomes I just slow down and I just thrive off other people and their energy and their ideas. And so, I'd say try and arrange meetings, even if it's just to big up yourself with your pal. It's a really useful thing to do, I think.
So have you been doing that on Zoom during this time, or has it been like in person, socially distanced meetings?
Yeah, both. Quite a lot on Zoom, and with my duo, we check in with each other at least 2 times a week, 3 times a week normally, for like a 2 hour meeting, and we'll just do like administration work together.
Oh, that's fantastic. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, it's nice just to like know that you're working at the same time together. And yeah, I've had a few like made a few new friends within the Edinburgh music scene actually during lockdown. My partner is really involved in the Edinburgh scene, so he's introduced me to a load of new musicians that I didn't know about. So that's been really nice to invest more in my local music scene, which I've sort of been a little bit absent from actually because I've been touring so much,
Right.
and putting out like in different parts of the world more than in Edinburgh itself.
Yeah. And I mean,
So,
I know that you're not touring now, but since you are a touring musician, what would you say is the most fulfilling part about being a touring musician?
I think, it's so inspiring and such a privilege to get to know different people around the world and learn about their community. And it's so amazing seeing like particularly like maybe voluntary run art centres and music halls around the world that are run on love and the love of music and the love of live art. And people just you turn up. You maybe have been on the bus all day or been driving, a lot of the day, and you turn up and like people, open their arms to you. They give you food. They want to sit and listen to you play music. It's amazing. It's just like blows my mind sometimes, generosity of people with that, and like how people give you the time of day and they want to hear your ideas, and like just holding space, and like holding the ritual of a live music event or like a live event is so like connecting in such a deep way to people that like you don't know at all, and you get to connect with them in this really deep, like what feels like a really meaningful way, and you get to do that, on a regular basis, and it's so fulfilling, so enriching, and a real honor. And I think we were talking about this actually last night, and there's also like an element of power with that, which is quite a lot of responsibility, but it's something I think we shouldn't take lightly as performing artists, because there's obviously a lot of difficult parts of the job, like being tired all the time, and late nights a lot of the time, a lot of work, like driving around, a lot of sleeping in dodgy hotels or whatever. And sometimes you might not get what you asked for at the gig, or things might get difficult with them or awkward somehow, talking to people. But all of those things kind of pale in comparison with the rewards, and like just reminding ourselves that there is a power there, and we need to honor that power and take it seriously and be responsible with it, and look after our fans and people that want to hear live music.
Could you tell me more about, how can this power be abused? What are your concerns there?
I think I just mean that when people sometimes, perhaps you'll get disgruntled about being tired, or you'll take for granted the fact that you're on stage, and maybe like there's certainly a danger for like I don't know, ego to get in the way, and because you're given this platform, the stage, you can maybe consider that you've got something important to say, just automatically because you have this platform.
Right.
But I guess it's just remembering that because you have this, it's sort of the opposite way around. Because you have this platform, then you have to have something important to say, or you have to like seek something really like valuable in that.
Yes.
And you have to hold people and respond to people in that moment, be really aware of that moment, and inquisitive and open-minded to that.
Yeah, in a way, you're serving your audience by being there, rather
Yeah.
than it being an ego trip of I'm more important than you and becoming complacent. I can see that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing, like playing live music, getting to go on stage and being looked at all the time. It can get it's a very strange thing to do on a regular basis, I think.
I mean, do you ever get nervous these days, or is it something that's never happened to you, or something of the past?
No, I certainly get nervous. I tell you what, I've been quite nervous doing Zoom gigs. At first, I was really nervous doing them because it's like, yeah, you don't get any feedback at all from your audience.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to know what they're thinking, and you think you worry that maybe they're just ignoring you. They don't have anything to say to you or something. But yeah, I mean, I do get nervous a lot. Sometimes there's no sort of rhyme or reason to my nerves. Sometimes they just come on, and sometimes they are non-existent.
So when they do come on, do you have a way to deal with them that helps you?
I guess I'm quite well equipped now to just powering through. I try to just act more when I'm nervous, so like make myself look as big as possible on stage,
right.
or like and just like over like maybe like be a bit over theatrical to like overcompensate, if that makes sense. And also I've been working quite a lot on breathing when I'm on stage, because it's really easy to forget to breathe. And that's where the shakes come in, because like I used to get terrible shakes, and then that obviously means that your playing is can get like not so smooth. And so I've been working on my breathing, and just like trying to measure your breathing before you go on stage is really good. Feel really grounded and satisfied with like the placement of yourself on stage as well, like just shifting yourself to make sure you're really comfortable there.
Yes.
And also just like humanizing the experience, I think, for yourself. So just remembering that people don't want perfection.
Yes.
I think like people love humans. They love to see the real, genuine, authentic version of you. I think that's why people are interested in live music, because it's not perfect. I think it wouldn't be live if it was perfect.
Yeah. They would be listening to a record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the breathing. Yeah, I found myself. I had a big problem with performance anxiety for years, and one of the things that helped me, among many, was breathing. Taking a deep breath before getting on stage, walking in on the stage and breathing out, then breathing in again, looking at the audience, and then breathing out, starting. And it's like giving yourself the time to actually take in what's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, because things sort of speed up, don't they, when you're on stage? Like naturally, I think I play faster.
Yeah.
And like my brain kind of wears away really fast. So if you can counteract that by just breathing, like and not being afraid of audible breathing, I think that's quite an empowering thing, actually.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm just I get self-conscious, I suppose, so I don't want to make a noise other than the music, but it's okay to breathe. Everyone makes noise when they breathe.
It's okay to breathe. Yes.
Yes.
I was interested also in what you said earlier about Praxis, and I guess just a question came into my mind about rehearsals, because I've met a few people who really hate rehearsing. They find it boring or very hard to slog through. But you said practice for you is actually fun and is something you enjoy. So how do you make practice fun?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think it's about always seeking more depth. I think you have to be curious about your own music. And again, it's like an ego thing. It's like you remove yourself from what's come before and from what your like idea of what the music should have been before. And you focus on what needs to be done in that moment. It's about like always putting your ears first. So I mean, practice doesn't need to be repetition.
Right.
I think that's like the difference between like people think you just need to do the same thing every day, and that's what practice is, or that's what rehearsal is. But it's about finding more depth, like the seeking out more depth, opening your ears up to the possibility, and also like the physical side of practice as well. Like I'm really like relating to the physical side of your practice. So seeing what your fingers like can do that makes them sound different, really engaging with the physical side of like a warm-up, so moving your body and making sure that you feel really comfortable in different settings, and also like, I mean, this is probably quite nerdy, but I'm obsessed with metronomes. I love practicing with metronomes and like treating them like a dual partner,
Right.
and like using different like metronome beats for different beats of the bar, relating to them in loads of different ways, and like you can use them to practice swing rhythm, you can use them to practice scales, you can use them to like practice offbeats, and it's just like it's a really nice way to engage your ears directly. But yeah, I'd say that, I mean, practice for me is like, yeah, this constant struggle sometimes. It's something that I'm used to struggling with, but it is a struggle.
Right.
And it's like any practice. I guess it's like yoga or meditation or the practice of scheduling your life, or any kind of practice that you want to implement in your life, any kind of like daily like ritual that you are looking for in your life. It's just about doing it, persevering with it, engaging with it, and with your brain and your body in the moment.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's just about coming back to it over and over. And if you're bored with it, I think that's a sign that you're not engaging with it enough.
Yeah.
And that you need to question the sound that you're making, because if you're bored with the sound that you're making, then likelihood is that other people might be as well.
Well, that is very, very true. I never thought of that. Oh no. Change it up a bit and pay attention to what you're doing. I like how you're thinking about the physical side as well, because I think we forget a lot about that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, this is all just me, like prophesizing, because I certainly feel bored myself when I'm practicing sometimes, especially like if I tell you what, maybe it's not boredom, maybe that's the wrong word, but if I know that I have something to practice that I maybe don't know that well and that I haven't got inside that well, then I guess it's just like facing that challenge of all of the things, all of the new things, the new questions, the new emotions that I'm going to feel when I really invest the time and energy into learning this thing, and like just kind of overcoming that barrier of
Wait a minute. So are you saying that you're thinking about the benefits, basically? You're thinking, imagine how amazing I'm going to feel once I've learned this piece. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I was actually saying the opposite. So like the barrier, but yeah, that is certainly something that you should think. You should like think positive and think about how you'll feel after you've gained all this knowledge. But I was saying that the barrier between you and all of that, like facing that, all of that stuff, can be just quite daunting and overwhelming sometimes. And having to look at yourself um, and engage with something on a deep level can be quite a scary thing and confronting in a lot of ways. So yeah, just like that hurdle can be hard. That's the hard one for me.
Right. There's one
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Apart from of singing and playing guitar, I play drums, and sometimes when there is a particular difficult passage, one of the things that I do is I actually do two things. One is I actually start repeating in my mind, it's easy, it's easy, it's easy. And the other thing I do is I slow it down to a crawl. And, like I'm a child who cannot play the drums.
Yeah,
and then,
absolutely.
Yeah, and then very slowly ramp it up. But, tricking my brain. I use the metronome as well. Tricking my brain that, it's only 5 beats more,
Yeah, this is great. Like thinking like a child, this is something that I always try and come back to. It sort of makes you more playful with it, I think, and like frees up your kind of adult brain with all of its loaded expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something that another top tip that I got recently is that like the emotional relationship that you have with your practice is really interesting. So someone said that you should work yourself the day before you want to go and perform something. You should work yourself until you feel like really frustrated
Right.
and that you can't play it. Get to that point, because we all need to get to that point where you feel like, just this like, I'm no good and I can't play this. It's not in time. It's not rhythmic or whatever.
Yeah.
And then go to bed and leave it once you get to that point.
Yeah.
And then, like, the next day, you can play it much better.
Yeah.
You sort of come to terms with the emotional roller coaster of it.
Yeah, actually, I have done that. And the other thing, actually, psychologically, that happens is that, when you go to sleep, especially in the early hours of the morning, that's when your brain starts making new connections about what you've learned the day before. So that's partly to blame or to thank for this. This result. Basically, when you go back, you will be able to do to go through that piece for sure better than the day before, for sure.
Yeah, and that ties in with the creativity thing, because I think when we create, like, the spaciousness is as important as the actual sort of sitting down at the computer or at the piano, or however you create, and doing it. I think like the consolidation period, like the distilling period, like the marinating period, is like as important, if not more important, to just like, let those ideas that are going to stay in your brain, and let the other ones fall out of your brain. Because I think like that's the challenge, actually, well, for me, and probably for a lot of people, is that we have these ideas coming to us all the time, and like you have to wade through them somehow and work out which ones stick and which ones don't, and like most of them don't. And so you have to dismiss them. You have to kind of just see which ones stick, and have that like disassociation from them and be able to let them go.
I know that when I write a song, I usually have to kind of write it all in one sitting, at least the bare bones of it, because otherwise I'll forget all about it. But one of the things that I do is I record as I go. Like, so say I do a section 1, section 2, section 3, and I record it as I go, and then. But then the day after, I go back and kind of, before I listen to that, I try to redo it, because sometimes I get new ideas the second time over.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to do it. Like, the voice memo thing on the iPhone, if you have an iPhone, it's like, it's so useful because you can just record something and then listen back to it whenever you want. And from the recording, you get like so much about the emotion of it. You get like the feel for it, you get the speed, and you get like the kind of like headspace that you're in. From as much as the actual like notes themselves. So yeah, like I totally agree. That's such a great way to learn. I'd like to improve your songs and um, to return to your material. I mean, sometimes I really like just having a really quick. If I know I've got a deadline and I've got like a piece to write and I've got like say 4 movements or something that I need to write, so I need 4 ideas minimum.
Yeah.
I'll have like a super quick brainstorm and just play whatever pops into my head,
Yeah.
and just record that, and then like come back to that in a week or something.
Yeah.
And like already that distilling period has been really useful, and I've maybe like thought about those ideas, and like I come back to those ideas and like I feel like they've developed already. That makes sense. So
Yeah. In a way, it
yeah.
reminds me of the process of writing. Your first draft, your second draft. Your first draft, it's like, just let's dump some ideas on this piece of paper, not
Yeah,
worry too much about
definitely.
it, and then, refine until you're happy with it. But yeah, in that process, you need to be ready to discard what doesn't work without getting too attached to it.
Yeah, like it's all just about the ego, isn't it? I feel like I've returned to that like loads, but it's just so interesting. Like that's the art of practice. Like challenges your ego a lot because you have to be critical of yourself, but in a productive way all the time. So you have to let your kind of previous self go, open up to new experiences, like and have the capacity for that as well. Have the capacity to allow yourself to be open to new experiences all the time, almost daily. So
Yeah.
I feel really lucky to have that in my life. It's sort of my version of meditation, I think.
When I play my drums, I definitely feel like I'm meditating, because if I think about it too much, I'm not going to be able to do it. If I don't concentrate, I can't do it. It's like you've got to be in this sort of state in between where you're challenged enough so you're not bored, but it's not so difficult that it's frustrating. And I think also when it is frustrating, yes, it's good to do what you said before, but also I think it's important to not beat yourself up, to really stop that critical part that's like, you're no good, because then otherwise you're not going to go back.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the big danger. The beating yourself up voice that comes back. It's I think that voice really stops us, doesn't it? And it puts too much pressure on like what we haven't done instead of what we have done,
Yes.
and what our capabilities are. So yeah, it's being open to the learning process and saying yes to things. I was talking to my friend the other day who was saying she was getting into, you probably know Kate Young. She's a phenomenal musician. Yeah. And she was saying she has been practicing like the art of the yes spiral. And so you just like basically tell yourself, like instead of being critical at all of yourself, you just tell yourself that yes, this is great, this is the best thing ever, and you just continually say, like, tell yourself that this is the best thing. and you get into this sort of flow state of like positivity.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
I think it's a good antidote if you are stuck in the negative spiral, for sure. And one of the things that can be done as well is never comparing yourself to other people, or it's just important to kind of go, okay, am I in the grand scheme of things progressing? So it doesn't matter even if today I'm terrible and yesterday I was amazing and tomorrow will be terrible again and then amazing again. It's more like, okay, overall, if I look at myself, I don't know, 3 years ago, have I progressed?
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's, the comparison thing is a real danger in our sort of society at the moment, with the social media being such a big part of people's identity and people's lives. Like, and the weight of that, like seeing people and their achievements, they're very sort of superficial level of achievements on social media, and like this shiny version of themselves, and that like, I mean, also producing that shiny version of yourself for social media. I think that can be a really dangerous thing for people who are kind of naturally comparative and worry about themselves against other people, as you say. There's space for all of us.
Yes.
And we're all unique, and we all have so much to learn from each other, and we can learn from ourselves as well, and it's about recognizing that, and just like trying to challenge those voices that tell us that kind of encourage us to compare ourselves with others, and see ourselves as less in any way as well.
And also seeing, the whole game as some kind of competition, because the moment you start seeing that way, well, you can't really win, can you? Because there's always going to be somebody else who's got more support and more money and more whatever, is younger and thinner and whatever it may be.
Totally. Exactly. I mean, and that's amazing. They've done something that they've managed to get to a spot that is really good for them, but maybe they haven't. Maybe there's something that we're not seeing, and maybe they're miserable. Or I mean, it's we're all going through different journeys of self-discovery all the time, and we have different priorities, and we have different things that bring us joy and different challenges. So like humanizing those people and humanizing ourselves at all times.
And not assuming anything either, because it's so easy, to assume from a picture, oh, this person's got a perfect life. It's like, really? Well, you don't really know that, do you?
Exactly.
I think it's time to just show our listener your wonderful music. And you were saying you were going to play for us today a song that is called This Space. So before you sing it and play it on your harp, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, well, this song was written during lockdown, actually, and it's called This Space. So it's about the space. And I wrote it for the Scotsman sessions, actually. I was part of the Scotsman sessions in their first week, and they've been running for a good few months. They've got loads of amazing Scottish artists involved, and it's basically an opportunity to play a song or a piece of music that you've written during this period, and there's like a little interview that goes with it as well. So the song is about the challenge of space, what it means to us, and like how it can be a really good thing as well, basically.
Awesome. All right. Whenever you're ready.
There's a space where you left me, a hole imprinted with our memory. It got lost in somebody
that was my guest, whom I'd like to thank once again for coming to the show. Every week, I'll be chatting to fantastic indie performers to uncover what it really takes to be a female independent singer-songwriter in this day and age, and how we can support one another to keep shining our light onto the world through our creative endeavors. So make sure you don't miss out by subscribing to Dare to Be Seen and follow us on socials at tinyurl.com/daretobeseenpod. I've been your host, Elisa Di Napoli, aka Elisa Vulpes. Thank you for listening, and please do rate and review the show. I'd love to hear your thoughts, unless you hate me, in which case you can skip that bit.
That's all for this episode of Dare to Be Seen. Join the conversation on facebook.com/groups/Dare to Be Seen podcast, and help create an empowering community of independent female singer-songwriters who support one another. For show notes, resources, and information on today's episode, visit tinyurl.com/daretobeseenpod. And remember to shine your own unique light onto the world. It needs it.